Hello, everyone, and welcome to Chai Side Chat Season 3. This is an exclusive interdisciplinary talk show featuring interviews with folks about creativity, the arts, healing, personal growth, and spirituality, among many other things. I am your host, Aishwarya, and my guests for this episode are well-known artists and practitioners of Bharatanatyam in the Bay Area. As a talented duo, they have collaborated on a number of projects together, including a dance theater adaptation of Life of Pi, and most recently a production called Boys Don't Dance, which explored gender stereotypes and dynamics in the world of Bharatanatyam. I invite you all to join me and these guest artists on an exploration of what drives their creative impulses and collaborative ventures. Please welcome Snigdha Venkataramani and Ganesh Vasudeva. Hi, folks. Welcome to Chai Side Chats, and thank you both so much for being here. As some of our listeners and viewers might be aware, we only talk about big topics here at Chai Side Chat, so we're going to start with a big one, which is kind of generally about artist identity. And as some of us may know, there's no really typical frame for what an artist's life looks like, especially nowadays, because it's kind of different from person to person. So kind of for both of you, when you think about or see or describe yourself as an artist, what is it that comes to mind? Like, how do you personally envision what that looks like for yourself as an artist? So anybody want to take that question first?
For me, when I think of, an artist means someone who can communicate whatever they want to say through their art form, whatever that art form is. And then my art form is dancing, and not just any dancing, it is Bharatanatyam. And for me, being an artist means that whatever I want to say, I can say it, or I can say it through Bharatanatyam.
For me, art is just like Ganesh said, a medium of expressing ourselves and also understanding ourselves. So our identities are also something that we discover, through our art. So I'm a musician and a Bharatanatyam dancer. So for me, music has led to so many different paths in my life. And I think I have discovered a lot of things about myself that I didn't know I had, a lot of strengths, a lot of weaknesses. And I think it was through my art that I was able to, I can say, I was able to become a better person or a better version of myself. So to me, that's what it is.
Yeah, I love what you said about how you kind of learn different things about yourself through your art. And I'm curious, if there's something specific that you'd be open to sharing that you learned about yourself, either based on, creating a particular piece or a particular way that you kind of are an artist, whatever that looks like in terms of like roles and stuff.
I think one of the biggest things that I was able to discover about myself was, I think the first project that I did with Ganesh, which was Bharata. I think my love for, I've been like, Lord Shiva is my Ishta Devata. And we did this, he had done this Abhinaya piece for which he wanted me to do the music for. And for me, I think I had always envisioned Lord Shiva as this alpha male, absolute, a person who's very strong. And, I've not somehow delved into the emotional side of Lord Shiva. And I think when I composed music for that piece, I was able to, I would say, break a lot of biases that I had also about Lord Shiva, that, I think we see, the even superheroes, that we see, it's all about just display of physical strength. And, we don't talk about, even in these superhero movies, they don't talk much about their emotions or their vulnerabilities. And I think that's one thing that I learned and discovered about myself, and then I think that's helped me become a better version of myself, especially as a mother to a boy. I think, being emotionally available for both my son and daughter is equally is important. So I think that's one big realization that I had from that production, I would say.
Yeah, that's really cool. And since it was a collaboration with both of you, I'd love to hear, Ganesh, how that process was for you of kind of exploring and maybe even deconstructing the archetype of what Lord Shiva is in kind of the popular way that we hear about, his characteristics and narratives and things like that too. So
Aishwarya, you're talking about this particular piece, right?
yeah. Just, I mean, because since Snigdha kind of spoke to how it shaped her, I'm curious what that process was like for you too.
So I had some experiences about being very vulnerable, and I wanted to translate that into dancing. So basically, I was thinking to be able to love and then trust somebody, you have to be 100% vulnerable, and that's really a tough position to be in, right? And then it is quite possible that in that when you are in that position, the other person kind of misuses that vulnerability and maybe makes you change for them. And if you did that at the end of, and if you changed yourself, then is it worth it? Is it like, are you even the same person you were when you fell in love? Like, I was asking all these different questions. And I wanted to explore that in dancing because, that's the only medium that I can express all these through. And I wanted to pick and in Bharatanatyam, how we are always dancing about gods. So I was in that phase still. So I wanted to pick a male character, a god, who is going through this kind of experience where he is super vulnerable and he's changing himself. And if he changes himself so much, is he even the same person he was when he first fell in love, right? So I picked, there are many options. There is Ganapati, there is Shanmuga, there is Shiva, there is Vishnu. There are all these male gods in Hinduism. And for me, I picked Shiva because there is no other god who is who stands for a lot of symbols based on what he wears, based on the things he has and things like that, right? His third eye, the Ganges, the Jata, each one stands for something, and it makes him uniquely Shiva. Right? Like if there is absolutely no other god that has a third eye, or there's absolutely no god who lifts his leg and then has Ganges on his head, things like those. So if we remove one by one, if we remove these items one by one from him, is he still Shiva? Right? So that is what it was. And we the setting was Shiva goes to this Nayaki. We don't know who she is. He goes to her and then says, I came to you with all my heart, and you asked me to lose Ganges because you're jealous, and I did that. You were afraid of fire, so I sent the fire away. You laughed at the deer, so I sent the deer away. And then you said, I am not wearing any silk, so I replaced all my the tiger skin for silk. And then there are several things he goes through like that, and then he says, will you accept me now? Right? But by the time he doesn't have any of the Shiva attributes, he's like are you just a man, or are you still Shiva? So, and it ends just Shiva saying, will you accept me now? That's it. but I'm exploring this whole concept of being vulnerable in love and changing yourself because someone expects you to, all those things. And Snigdha set music for that in Ragamalika, and I will let her talk about that, or how she did it. By the way, one thing I want to mention is there is obviously no lyrics for it, right? So I got the lyrics composed by this amazing lyricist called, her name is Sandhya Kalyanasundaram. She used to live in Bay Area. Now she's in Bangalore. She wrote the lyrics, and then Snigdha set the music, and Snigdha can talk about how she went about.
So yeah, the music part of it was, for me, the first line, I think the first line completely exposes the vulnerability of Shiva there. And then, the following passages were, about him losing each attribute of his. So, so the first raga had to be something very, very solemn, very, which had to evoke a sense of melancholy. So that's why I picked Vasanti. It's a raga that I love. I absolutely love. And I think now after that project, I think we can say that Ganesh and I, it's our favorite raga, and we try to avoid using it now, because like pretty much now even the Bay Area audience knows that there will be some shade of Vasanti coming somewhere, so we've tried to avoid it. And then I use, like, for every attribute, I think for the moon I used Chandra Jyoti, and so something like that. For each attribute I had used one raga that pertains to the attribute. So
I think you use Surya for fire, I think.
Surya for fire, and I think for Ganga I'd used Megh Malhar. So yeah, so it was it was very interesting. I mean, for me, I would say it was a big learning experience to, because everything was pretty much, we had this piece of paper with lyrics composed exclusively for this. It's not like you're given a tevaram or some lyric that already has a flow to it, or something that's known, something that you've heard. So for me, it was a big learning experience to even decode the lyrics and make sure that they all fit into the talam, and we had to even figure out what talam we should set the piece in. So all of that, I think, was a big learning experience for me. So I should thank Ganesh. I think that one piece is completely, it's a game changer for me, I would say.
Yeah, that sounds amazing. And this is a question I had actually asked very first episode of Chai Side Chats. I had asked Kashi and Ramya, because they also have collaborated a lot together around, like, how does the decision-making process happen when you guys are working together, right? Like, Snigdha, you spoke about how you were very intentional about the raga selection for each of these sections or each of these attributes. So in terms of, like, the process of both of you figuring that out, how do you decide? Do you decide? Is Ganesh part of that conversation, part of that process? Like, just curious what that looks like.
I'll let you answer that, Ganesh.
Yeah, in general, I feel like we should let the experts in that subject make that decision, but everyone should, like, after that, everyone should buy into that, right? So whenever I'm working with Snigdha, I always have, okay, this is what I'm trying to do. Like, I have a synopsis. I have, these are the main emotions in this particular piece. And if it is like, if there are many emotions in each, say, paragraph or, charanam, I mentioned that. So I have like a idea, like a document that I, go over with Snigdha. And then I tell her, now, it's entirely up to you. And then she will try something and then say, hey, what do you think? This is what I tried. And then I'm like, first, a lot of times, just the first one, I'm like bowled over. I'm like, oh yeah, this is the right thing. Once in a while, it has happened that I'm like, no, not this. And maybe we'll talk about that to that one padam that we worked on. Yeah, so that's, and we go back and forth and fine tune that, and that's how it's always been for me with Snigdha.
I think, I mean, this is true for anybody who's composing music for dance. You know, the first thing you need to understand is the intent of the dancer, because our role as the music collaborator is to embellish the dance production with our music. But, you know, we need to make sure that our music conveys what the dancer intends. So, you know, I think I leave a lot of the decision making to Ganesh in that aspect. But I'm also very persuasive. So, you know, if there's some raga or some piece that I'm very passionate about, you know, I make sure I try to, you know, push my case a lot, which I've done, you know, for many of the pieces. Yeah, it's also again using Vasanti or Charukeshi. You know, sometimes I think in one of the other productions where we did, I think we Charukeshi, I think, was a repeat raga, and then we were debating whether to use it. But you know, somehow for me that mood and the Charukeshi, I could not think of any other raga fitting that mood. So I persuaded Ganesh. I said, no, you know, this is going to work. You know, please, you know, just trust me on this. You know, this will really sound good. So I think. So there have been instances where I have been persuasive, but yes, I do. I do believe that, you know, the main objective of a music composer should be to embellish the dance production and also to bring out the intent of the dancer beautifully through the music.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. I am curious about the other side as well, since Snigdha, you're a Bharatanatyam dancer as well, in addition to being a musician, right? So do you, like, when you and Ganesh collaborate, are you coming in as just like the music person? Is there a little bit more fluidity in terms of what you're bringing to the process, like when you're collaborating together specifically?
Okay, yeah, I'll let Ganesh answer that.
I think you know, because Snigdha is a dancer as well. Even before she starts composing music, right? When we are talking about the idea, when I'm talking about the idea, and this is how I'm thinking about it, this is how I'm thinking of doing it, this is probably a good lyrics for it, etc., etc. At that point, she gives me feedback as well, saying, yeah, you know, that sounds good, or no, why don't you think about it this way? And throughout, as we progress, you know, as we finalize the piece, and you know, as we get the music together, she has always chipped in. I think sometimes it's really hard to separate like being a dancer and a musician. You know, I mean, these are like really like feedbacks, right? I mean, like if we were to you know, consider our most recent, which is not Boys Don't Dance. Boys Don't Dance was set in 2020. In August, we worked on a piece together that was a 20-minute piece. It was the episode of Shiva and Arjuna's fight, basically where Arjuna gets the Pashupatastra from Shiva. And I've wanted to do that for a long time, and I kind of had an idea of what I wanted. I wanted like two very strong male characters, right? And they fight. So obviously, like there are some things that I'm like, okay, there are these two male characters, so there will be a lot of dancing. They will do this, jati and swara and all those things. As I was pitching this to Snigdha, she was saying, oh, think about this, think about that. And like she pitched in a lot of her own ideas, and I liked a lot of those. One of the things I was very strong about was the idea of like Shiva changing to the hunter. And then he goes in front of Arjuna and then starts a fight and blah, 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 right? So I wanted that change from Shiva being Shiva, like, you know, calm, composed, grounded Shiva, to this hyperactive, not so classy, you know, hunter who jumps around and then says things that he shouldn't, and all those things, right? That entire character change. So then, do you wanna suggest, Ms. Snigdha, do you want to talk about like what you did and all those things for that?
Sure, absolutely. But before I come to that, so I always come in as a package deal, so it's like, definitely I'll make music for you, but I think it's in the dancer's best interest also that I want to make sure that, whatever they intend should come out in the best possible way. So that's why I'm very, I very openly give my feedback on a lot of things also, like the ideas or, and sometimes, I also feel if, something may not be very good musically, then I do suggest that, we can approach the scene a little differently, just so that, the music is also tight. The music part of it is also tight. So with this scene that we were talking about, showing the transformation, I was, so we did a piece in the raga Todi, which is the 8th Melakarta raga, Melakarta, it's a parent raga in the Carnatic music cycle. So I was wondering, how do I bring about a transition, because Todi being, it's called the king of ragas, right? Todi being a raga that has such a presence, how will we bring about a transition that, lands on Todi? So I had this idea of, Todi being the 8th Melakarta. I thought, we'll do just the scales of the first 7 Melakartas, and then we land on Todi. So, we did Kanakangi, Ratnangi, Ganamurti, Vanaspati, Manavati, Tanarupi, Senavati, Hanumatodi. So we came down to this. And the singer for this project was actually from India. And he listened to this and he said, oh my God, I'm blown away. I've never thought of something like this. This is just, how could you do this with Arohanam? You just got this.
Can I interject? So the idea was that each time just one note changes. So one note changes, one note changes, one note changes in the raga, and it ends up like being Todi. So that I like also even in the dance, the idea was that the Gan just changes to something else. Shiva's, each attribute that Shiva has from Shiva, it changes to some attribute of Hunter. For example, the moon and the Ganges become his headdress, like that. So the musical theme also was kind of like changing one note at a time. Same as dance, where it is changing one attribute of Shiva at a time. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's very cool. And also, just as sort of a side note, I am noticing the parallel process too, right? Between these two pieces, the collaborations that you guys spoke about, the first one and now this one, just kind of, I guess, sort of deconstructing different attributes of Shiva seems to be the common theme here, which is really cool. I love that. Yeah, that's amazing. And yeah, package deal for sure. I think I, as a multi-hyphenate artist, also feel similarly when I'm kind of in different environments and different spaces with folks too. So I wanted to switch gears a little bit and talk a little bit about this idea of like a target audience. I'm not sure if this is something either of you have actively considered or thought about when you are creating work or putting new work out there, but it's just sort of a question to, reflect on, is what is the extent to which you do consider who the target audience for your artistic work might be, and how does that impact, what the work is and also the process of how you create that work. So, I mean, any of these productions or even like Life of Pi, Boys Don't Dance, things like that, like, did you guys have a target audience in mind for who you wanted to reach out to, who your, production was more like catered towards or anything like that?
So for me, the kind of pieces I do, the audience definitely like based on who the audience is, I will change what I'm dancing, but it is not very granular. It is not like, oh, this particular audience is kind of like, Indians in Bay Area or white folks who have never, seen Bharatanatyam. It's not like that. It was more like, I'm dancing in Chennai, so I'm going to do this traditional. Oh, I'm dancing in San Francisco, it's at a temple, I'm gonna do this, or I'm dancing here at a theater, right? So that's how I started. But where I am today is very different. I feel like That needs to be considered to some extent. But also what's more important is, what do I want to say? Like, what do I want to say, right? Forget audience first. Forget who you're dancing to. What do I want to say through my dancing? That is the most important thing for me. And then once I say, oh, this is Life of Pi, I want to do Life of Pi, or I want to do Boys Don't Dance, and say this through that. And then I would look at and then say, okay, I'm doing this in San Francisco Bay Area. So there will be like, Bharatanatyam dancers, musicians, Indians, non-Bharatanatyam Indian audience, and then, non-Indian white folks, maybe some of my friends who have never seen dancing, all those things, right? And then once I know what I want to say, then I want to bring it out in such a way that each of these audience segments will get it. So it is not just, entirely Bharatanatyam. What I mean is it is not entirely done like a padam format where no one else understands, right? It's just Bharatanatyam dancers that get padams or javadis, right? And so for me, instead of that, what's important is whatever I want to say reaches all these different types of audience across the spectrum.
I'm of the same belief that, I think our intent is more important than, reaching a target audience, because, then the scope of our work otherwise would be very limited, So I think the first and most important thing is to find your artistic voice. I think what works for you, what is your niche? Because, if you asked the Snigdha, like, say 15 years back, I don't know if this was my pathway, I don't know if I wanted to be a music composer, I probably wanted to sing Carnatic music and, reach out to a traditional audience that would appreciate and, enjoy Carnatic music. But there was this other side to me also, which is Bharatanatyam, which I also love equally, so, so this for me was a discovery. So I think, the day, I knew that, this, I can make both Bharatanatyam and Carnatic music, work together and do is, I think the audience will come if your work is good. And it doesn't matter who the audience is, I think they will come if your work is good. And this is something that we've discovered through time that, I think instead of chasing an audience, I think we should present quality work, so that's the most important thing there.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love that you both are kind of in this place of not wanting to compromise your integrity and your, intuition on the themes you want to communicate or the things that you want to explore in your work. And it is challenging, right? Though, because sometimes I think that artists often get pulled in so many different directions thematically, either maybe they've because of what they've done in the past. And so, people who enjoy their work kind of come to expect the same thing from them over and over again. I don't know if that's something that either of you have experienced personally of this, people putting you into a box almost of wanting to kind of see similar things from you because that's what you explored in the past. And maybe that really resonated with them, for example.
Yeah, I feel that when you do a, I don't want to say contemporary work, but contemporary theme in Bharatanatyam, no matter how traditionally you have done it, right? Then I think a lot of people consider you as that and not as a, Margam dancer, which is kind of like mind-boggling to me. I think any of us that are trained in Bharatanatyam can never not be Margam dancers. Anything like we will always be Margam dancers, right? And then everything else comes after that. So yeah, people try to, I think it is only natural for anyone. I also do that. Sometimes I bucket people, I, box them. So I kind of understand when even someone else does that to me, but yeah, it's funny though for me.
It's the same story with the music, So once you start singing for dance and composing for dance, then people put you in this box that you are not a kacheri singer, but that you only compose for dance. So when I do full-fledged music concerts, people are like, oh, you do that too? Oh, is that your thing as well? That's always been my thing all my life. But it's just that like I said, your work has to be good. You just have to the once you're just focused on your work, I think and I know it's difficult because I used to get affected by these things, when people would just brand me as only a dance singer and all that. But I would say, I think with the years of working as a full-time artist, I think I've realized that if your work is good, people will you will find the appreciation that you are looking for. So I think that is most important.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, just this idea of whoever the right audience is for whatever that particular production is, whatever that particular piece is, will get attracted to you for whatever reason, by some means, right? It's sort of just trusting the process, trusting the universe, however you want to think about it. But yeah. So I wanted to transition now into our experiential activity. I feel like we've done a lot of talking, and maybe we can switch gears a little bit. So we're going to do something that I'm calling mirrored movement reflections. So it's going to be a movement-based activity. And basically the way that it's going to work is each of us will sort of take turns being the leader and being followers. And essentially the followers have to mimic the leader's movements or try to mirror it as closely as possible. And just some elements to kind of play with when each of us is the leader could include things like timing or pace, maybe the complexity of the movements. I know that we're on Zoom, so maybe we can try to keep them simple so we can follow each other. But yeah, I think intention is just really try to have fun with the process. Most of these experiential activities that I do with folks are really to kind of reconnect to our maybe inner child, the fun part of where the creativity in our work professionally comes from. So that's sort of the intention. And so, yeah, each of us will kind of take about a minute or so to be the leader, and then we'll switch roles. And then the final round is going to be interesting. It's going to be us trying to move together, but nobody's really the leader. But we'll start with this one first. Does anybody want to start with being a leader? I'm just going to set a timer also, so we're kind of sticking to a minute or so each. So
when we say the movement, it is kind of like anything, like face or hands or body or anything within the Zoom.
Yeah, I mean, obviously within the frame, our Zoom frame here. So yeah. So for the final round, the intention is kind of both of you trying to move together, trying to move in unison. So there's no designated leader, there's no designated follower. Again, the goal is to sort of just try to sync up energetically as much as possible. And it might be hard to assess this virtually, but just try to do your best. You guys have been working together, collaborating for a while. So I'm trusting that there's some synergy in this relationship too. So yeah, again, it can be any kind of movement, and I'll again set a timer for about a minute and let you all know. So whenever you're ready, go for it. Cool. So I would love to hear how that process was for both of you doing this exercise.
It was pretty cool. I think when Snigdha said, "Oh, this one," I'm like, okay, it can be napping or waking up in the morning. So I kind of like said, "Oh, it's morning." And then she said, "Man," and I'm like, "Oh, that must be husband or something like that." So I said, "Where did he go? Where did he go? Did he go out of the house?" And then I think then you were looking for him. We were we were going out of the house, and did he leave the house and go somewhere else in this early morning? Kind of went from there. It's
Yeah,
interesting.
from there it went to, I was showing that he went to another woman's house and
Did you? I did not see that actually.
oh no, yeah.
I wish I'd seen that.
But you played along so well, you were like, I thought he was showing that, he was trying to, like that other woman was trying to badmouth about me. And then I kind of played along and I said, oh, so she has him like wrapped around her.
Interesting. What I was thinking in my mind is, oh, why did he leave? Did I say something? I don't remember. And then said, oh, yesterday I was telling something. Scolding him.
That's fun. So
I love that.
It is
I
interesting.
love how the narrative was so different. Like you guys are constantly trying to figure out what is the story that we are together trying to tell.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's fun. I think that one of the reasons I enjoy doing activities like this is you kind of, I mean, part of it is like, how well do you know each other? That's part of the exercise, because like, can you predict what the other person is going to do? But it's also like, attuning energetically. And I mean, I'd love to do something like this face to face in person, because then you're like facing each other. So you have a little bit more of like the facial cues, body language cues compared to when you're on Zoom and like trying to be in the story, but also trying to like mirror and understand what each other is doing. So yeah, thank you both for humoring me and doing this activity. Really appreciate it. I hope you enjoyed it. It seems like it was pretty fun.
Absolutely.
So,
it was a lot of fun. Yes.
Yeah, awesome. Well, yeah, that brings us to the end of our episode for Chai Side Chats, but I wanted to thank you both so much for being here, for sharing about your process of working together and collaborating. And yeah, this is a very successful duo. So we hope to see more from both of you guys definitely in the future. So
thank you so much, Aishwarya. And it's wonderful interacting with you.
Thank you, Aishwarya, for having us.
Yeah, thank you. Hello, everyone. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Chai Side Chats with Ganesh and Snigdha, as well as our movement-based experiential activity at the end. If you like this episode, share it with other folks. Do subscribe to the Creativity Awakening YouTube channel and follow our pages on social media that are linked in the description below. So in addition to these video episodes on YouTube, we also have audio-only solo episodes this season of Chai Side Chats, and they are available to listen to on Podbean, Spotify, or Apple Podcasts. So you can find the link for that in the description as well. Do stay tuned. The next episode of Chai Side Chats is coming soon.